Excellent. So I'll just introduce myself first. So I'm Jennifer, and I work in China for a sourcing manufacturing company that specializes in the production of metal parts and components, as well as plastic with injection molding. So essentially I work for a sourcing platform where buyers can be connected to suppliers all around the world to manufacture any kinds of parts, whether that be for a machine or a part that you have designed yourself. So we specialize in CNC machining, injection molding, casting, stamping, and fabrication. And essentially, I will show you the website at the end of my small sharing. However, essentially, it's really simple to just hop on and get a quote for your part to be manufactured and brought to market. So it's super simple to use, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home, which in the situation where the world is in right now, that's definitely more of a benefit than it ever has been. So I'm going to talk to you a bit today. Who have we got with us today, actually?
We have 8 founders.
Yeah.
One from India, a couple of few from Australia as well, few from US. So yeah, all has got hardware ideas. And after your presentation, they will do some sort of a pitch as well, and you'll be able to hear them and you can rate them as well. So yeah, we got full house here.
Excellent, sounds brilliant, awesome. So I'm going to talk to you a little about design manufacturability. So it's really important, obviously, when you're creating a design to check how manufacturable that design is, because in the long run, that's going to affect a lot to do with the production. So I'll first touch on DFM and DFA. The last few decades have brought a lot of new challenges to manufacturing companies, and this year has been no different. So it's really important for technology and improvement for the transportation of goods, because it's enabled companies to source globally. And when companies source globally, they don't necessarily visit the factory and be too hands-on with the manufacturing process, which is why now the design more than ever is really important to get perfect, because sometimes you just don't have that control to make sure that the production is going well and reflecting how you wanted it through your design. So manufacturing companies now are able to offer products at lower prices, and in an effort to maintain this business and achieve the growth, many manufacturers are continuing to develop products, obviously, to influence their customer base. So you must be quick to market and also have high product quality. So this involves being properly planned, and this would lead to the implementation of design for manufacturing and design for assembly. These processes enable companies to develop high quality products, and this obviously, if you're using these methods, can save you time and cost. So higher quality at a lower cost usually, hopefully, translates into more sales and higher customer loyalty. So design for manufacturing and design for assembly, this combination of a product enables a product design to be efficiently manufactured and easily assembled with the minimum labor cost. So through using DFM, a company, you can essentially prevent, detect, and quantify and also eliminate waste and manufacturing inefficiency through your product design. So DFM is a break from tradition, actually. So with DFM, the design and manufacturing engineers work together as a team with the product developers, the product manufacturers, and the assembly methods simultaneously with the design. So it brings the teams together to get a more streamlined production. And many engineers automatically separate the two, DFM and DFA, since they have been defined separately for years. But actually, for the most effective application, they should be used together. So at Haizol, we combine the two. So our manufacturing team and the assembly team would come together to check the design and make it the best it can be for manufacturing. So yes, as I said, it's a combination of the two, and it means that your design can be made at the lowest production cost. And obviously that's not too important when you're creating a prototype, but later down the line when you're making them in mass production, it gets very, very important because every penny counts with that production. And it also means it can be replicated really easily. If you did want to change supplier, if you have a strong design at the start, you can switch it to another supplier and you wouldn't have too many problems with them understanding your design and exactly what you want to achieve. So it's good that DFM and DFA can work side by side together to give you the products that you want. So why use DFM and DFA? Well, that you get a faster time to market from design to delivery, because even though you're putting in a little bit of work at the start, it saves you a lot of time in the long run and during production, because you've eliminated all of the possible potential problems that it could have. You've made it as easy to manufacture and assemble as possible, and this will make it much quicker to manufacture, which again saves cost. So these methodologies allow for new and improved products to be designed, manufactured, and essentially offered to your consumer in a shorter period of time. It helps eliminate multiple revisions and design changes that can cause problems with the delay, program delays, and also obviously increase your cost. This route is often more comprehensive, efficient, and it produces it with the customer's requirements in mind. So the customer's requirements go at the forefront of this method with DFM and DFA, and your product is also manufactured with the customer in mind. So the application of DFMA, which is essentially the combination of the two, results in a shorter assembly time, a lower assembly cost, and elimination of process waste and increased product reliability. So let's now go into how to perform DFM and DFA, which is obviously a very important part, not just why you should do it, but how you should do it. Many companies today are integrating DFM and DFA practices through their design and manufacturing teamwork. The design for manufacturing and design for assembly techniques are two different classifications. So the DFM techniques are focused on individual parts and components with a goal of reducing or eliminating expensive, complex, or any unnecessary features that you have in your design, with the goal of reducing or eliminating expense. So it looks at what might be difficult in your design to manufacture, and it changes that before it goes into production. Whereas DFA technique focuses on reduction and standardization of parts. So sub-assemblies and assemblies, the goal here would be to reduce assembly time and cost. But if you think about it, they must be integrated to prevent one from causing negative effects on the other. So the designer may want to combine parts to reduce the assembly steps or quantity of parts and hardware. But if those results are difficult or expensive to manufacture, then essentially you've gained nothing from doing this process. So it works best when they work together to achieve your overall goal. Okay, so that's how they would perform it. And whoever you choose to manufacture with, they should have an in-house engineering team who are experts at this. So immediately can look at your design and give you a long list or a short list, depending on how well you've executed that design, about how you can improve it to make it more manufacturable. So now let's talk about reducing quantity of component parts and simplifying your part design. So you as designers should be reviewing the assembly design, the part by part, and determine if any part can be eliminated or combined with another part. So you should be determining the theoretical minimum quantity of parts required for assembly. One method for determining the minimum part quantities is to first list out all of the components in your assembly, including the hardware, and then ask yourself the following questions that I've listed here. So the first would be, can the part be manufactured using the same material as other parts? How does the part in question move in relation to other moving parts? Can the parts be combined without need for any special process or tooling? So we at Haizol are very, very keen on this part. So we have manufacturers coming to us on a regular basis and their part has some kind of special process or special tool required. Now, not only does often this tool need to be purchased at a high cost, but the special process obviously makes it a lot longer to manufacture than the traditional normal manufacturing processes. So that manufacturing, if you're doing mass production, can really influence the overall time. So that's definitely something to look out for. And if combined with another part, how does that impact the ease of possible disassembly? And if combined with other parts, how would it impact the ease of manufacture? So if you go by this checklist, it's kind of a good checklist to ask yourself in the design process to try to reduce the quantity of your component parts and essentially simplify your part design. So the ease of your part for fabrication, essentially putting it together. We need to consider several things. First of all, the method of fabrication, the material specifications, and of course your product volume. Like I said, for prototyping it doesn't make a huge difference, but later down the line when you need this perfected, it makes a huge difference. So you as a designer should consider the method of fabrication that may be used for producing your parts, the required materials, and also the production volumes. And the 3 points I've listed below are kind of some guidelines to review with regards to this. So first, I would recommend specify materials that are commonly used and compatible with all existing production processes. That should minimize processing time and meet all of the functional requirements that you need for your part. Next, review the part and eliminate any unnecessary features that could result in additional process steps, which again is extra effort and complex or expensive tooling may be required. So the less steps you've got in the manufacturing process, the better. And then design reviews with members of process engineering, quality control, and the fabrication team. So it's that combination of the teams coming together that will really make your design strong. So having members from not only engineering, but quality control and putting it together can really, really be beneficial where that is possible. And in most cases, the meetings do result in fewer changes to the design, which essentially increases utilization of existing tools and improve machine utilization. So prevent the need for capital expenses of special tools. Also, the meetings improve knowledge transfer of the design intent to all the levels of the organization. So all the levels and all the teams immediately know your design is for what purpose, what end user, what's the functionality required, and so everybody has kind of a more holistic vision of your goal. So that is designing parts. Sorry, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you so well.
No, it's okay. Continue.
Okay. I'll continue, and then if you have any questions about outsourcing at the end, I'll be happy to answer them. So, capabilities and tolerances. So this is another really important part of the manufacturing process, is you should become very familiar with the process capabilities of any of your equipment that you need to use when manufacturing your product or your part. So also review the current process controls to assure any special characteristics, for example, KCCs or KPCs, can be monitored. Avoiding tight tolerances is a blessing, if at all possible. And that would be beyond the capability of your manufacturing process. So it depends which process you're manufacturing your parts with, and your engineers will be able to guide you with what tolerance this machine can actually achieve in its standard capacity without having to add in any additional tooling or without any handyman coming in to achieve those tight tolerances for you. So whichever process that you choose, I would recommend finding out that machine tolerance and then trying to get your part to be within that tolerance, which will make it a lot easier to manufacture. So determine if improved process capabilities are required early in the design or program schedule to allow for time to any process improvement activities and the establishment of proper process controls. So also you should evaluate any interaction between the components, the component parts, and avoid any tolerances that are out of range. So this will avoid any stack-up issues. Parts should be dimensioned in the center of the tolerance range to allow for the greatest variance and also still remain functional according to your specification and the end user. In addition, we should try and avoid one-sided tolerances and use surface finish callouts only. So this may result, if you don't do this, it may result in unneeded additional part cost, which again translates to manufacturing cost in the long run. And chamfered or radius corners should be allowed if it doesn't change the functionality of the part. So it's really important to discuss with your engineering and product development team about your capabilities with the manufacturing process you've chosen and tolerances that can be achieved, and be kept mindful of corners, edges, and anything in the process that may need special equipment that can increase your cost. Now let's look at mistake-proof product design and assembly. So as a designer, you should be looking for ways to mistake-proof your design. Easier said than done. Making the proper assembly of parts that combine, instantly recognizable and impossible to assemble correctly, will give a lot of benefits during this process. So through the addition of tabs and slots and asymmetrical holes and interference features, the parts can be made difficult or impossible to assemble in reverse or oriented improperly. So your aim is to make it super simple to give a production team, essentially the factory, and for them to assemble it with a mistake-proof design, which also means it's be able to be deassembled as well in the same way and with the same ease. So that you should avoid any irreversible. If you put it together, you should be able to also deassemble it. So nothing should be irreversible, and you should avoid the need for any special adjustments or alignments in the assembly process. So with enough thought put into the design of the assembly, many of the parts can be made mistake-proof. You should also consider how the parts could be assembled and could be inspected for quality purposes. For some parts, conformance to design requirements may be verified with basic go or non-go tools, but in other cases, the parts may need to be measured, and you as a designer should indicate any key or critical quality dimensions or features. So that's really, really important. And again, it's all about the first stage of your journey, your manufacturing journey, is to get that right. And as I keep saying, it'll be very, very beneficial in the long run. So after you have made it mistake-proof, another part of this is being easily designed for assembly. So it goes without saying that the simpler the design is that you have created, the simpler it is to actually assemble. So here, we should try and keep the patterns of movement simple in your assembly process. So this will minimize the steps. And there are many, many methods to design for ease of assembly. And when designing for assembly, just remember, keep it as simple as possible, especially in this in this world right now where probably you'll be outsourcing your design for manufacturing, especially when you want to produce in mass quantities. And so you're not there when they're going to be designing the product. Your design needs to be as simple as possible to make sure it's right every time. So you should consider where the assembly is going to be performed and the tools or the equipment that will be available. For example, if your product is sold as a kit and assembled in the field by the customer, it is different than if it will be assembled on an assembly line or inside a factory. So you need to think about this beforehand. And there are many guidelines for ease of assembly. They're easily downloadable for your reference. And I've just given a couple of examples below. So the first one would be to incorporate simple patterns of movement in your assembly process. If that's not possible, consider breaking it down into logical sub-assemblies. Next would be to avoid multiple setups or reorientation during this assembly process. This creates wasted movement and time. The parts should incorporate lead-in features and chafers. This allows for easier insertion of pins or bolts. Next, design the product so that it may be assembled from the bottom up using gravity to your advantage. We should always allow for adequate tool clearance and assure the operator can see what they are assembling. So for example, it's not ideal to have hidden interfaces or hidden attachment points that aren't obvious to whoever is assembling it. And lastly, limit the variety of hardware sizes and configurations in the assembly. So this will help prevent incorrect hardware being used or used in the wrong location. So for example, one design recently observed utilized one size and one type of self-tapping screw for every sub-assembly and the parent assembly. So only one type of hardware was required in the production cell. So all of this, if you are a designer, is quite a lot to take on board, which is why I would highly recommend using an in-house team of engineers who can also collaborate with their other teams to ensure all of these are done to the best of their capacity and the best of their ability to ensure when you go into the manufacturing stage, it's as stress-free as possible and it's as fast as possible, because essentially the manufacturing time translates into money. So here's where I bring in the platform that I work for, Haizol. So essentially, once you have the design, it doesn't have to be the finished, completed design. You would simply log on to the website and release an RFQ, a request for quote. Now, here, it's very, very simple. You drag and drop your file if you have a 3D image. So if not, you can simply just submit your 2D file and it works exactly in the same way. You upload the description about your parts and any other parameters. The more specific you can be to anyone manufacturing your product, the better. Because 9 times out of 10, if you're not specific enough, it just delays the quotation because they will have to get back to you asking for more information on that part. So you would put in the material, the tolerance, the order quantity, the delivery time, how fast do you need it, and the main category that you would like it to be manufactured with, whether that be machining, injection molding, casting. So once you upload it here, it's sent into our system, and essentially you will receive a quote, many quotes back from suppliers all over Asia, and you can quickly see and choose based on their capacity, their capabilities, and also obviously their price, which one you want to go with. And another thing that's good about Haizol is that there's no minimum order quantity. So if you have a small order quantity, that's fine, you just note it in the description. And obviously if you have mass production, that's also fine, can be simply popped into the description, and we will find manufacturers who are able to fulfill that quantity. So it's super easy to do, and obviously you can do it from the comfort of your own home. So Haizol also offer another route to market, which is their one-stop sourcing solution. The one-stop sourcing solution is a hands-off manufacturing process, which means that you would submit either your 3D CAD model, or if you don't have it, your 2D design, and you would get contacted by an account manager who would guide you through the whole process. So they would be, Haizol itself would be manufacturing your part, your product, and then delivering it to you. So it's totally hands-off. You get a quote. You don't need to deal with manufacturers. You don't need to be comparing quotes. You don't need to be negotiating with the manufacturer, because Haizol will do that all for you. And again, what we've been talking about today, design for manufacturability, Haizol have an in-house team of engineers who would take care of all of that. So they would go through your design with a fine-tooth comb before it goes into production to see what could be improved. Are there any tight tolerances? How manufacturable is this design? Is there any way that we could reduce some steps while still achieving the functionality that you need? So that's a really, really important stage. And I would just like to show you how our instant quote works. Now, this only at the moment works for machining, and it only works with a 3D CAD model. But if you have a 3D CAD model, you can simply hop onto the website and upload it into the system, and it will give you an instant quote on how much that would cost for different quantities. So it's very, very useful. Let me just show you this very fast video, which will explain it much better than myself.
Have machining parts to be quoted? Use our instant quoting system inbuilt into our site. Upload 3D CAD design and get instantly quoted for your part. Within a few minutes of uploading a part online, our automated software reviews them, and you get an interactive quote and design analysis with real-time pricing. Need more expertise? We have really smart engineers who can help fine-tune your parts. In just a few clicks, you can get a quote and purchase your parts. Upload your 3D model to get started. Our quoting engine instantly analyzes the part's geometry and properties and then returns cost, lead time, and manufacturability. Easily adjust the process, material, and finish using the intuitive searchable drop-downs. If you want to change material, tolerance, or process, simply update. You can instantly view the updated price by clicking Recalculate. Specify additional requirements and add a drawing if applicable. Easily upload revisions based on design feedback and add more parts into your quote with the Upload 3D Parts button. When you're ready to order, click Place Order. That's it. No more waiting around for quotes to come back. If you have questions, just ask. Upload your 3D models and get started.
So that's essentially how the platform works. And as you can see, it's very intuitive and very simple to use. So you go through each step one by one, and if you can also add the secondary treatments, if you needed a heat treatment or a surface treatment, you can pop it in there and it accounts for all of that in the final quote. So thank you very much for listening to me today, and I hope that you managed to take something from the speech. And I look forward to any questions you have.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was awesome.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Yeah. I think we have a lot of questions about sourcing and not much about manufacturing and about quote done as well. A lot of our program cohort has got up to that stage as well. So yeah, any questions for Jennifer?
What happens if your product isn't patented and then you enter into the system? Isn't there a possibility of like, and I'm being paranoid, but like of it being stolen?
Of course. So obviously when you're just putting your design onto the internet digitally, this is a concern for anybody, and rightly so. So I'll just talk about what Haizol have in place, which is what any reputable supplier should have in place. So we have NDA agreements. Immediately, as soon as you upload the design, you can also choose to submit your NDA, so your non-disclosure agreement. And there's also different levels of NDA. So you can have an NDA where you require every supplier who quotes you to sign the NDA, or that can be just a one-sided NDA that you put out. And all of the system on our side is encrypted. So when you're uploading your design, it stays within our system, and it doesn't leave that system, and it's completely safe and secure. So with Haizol, you know that your design will only stay in the Haizol system, and it's very, very safe. And in terms of when it's given to the suppliers, to the factories, you would require them to sign the NDA agreement before production. So that should hopefully give you the peace of mind regarding that. It's a very important point, actually.
Thank you.
My
Actually,
pleasure.
we have an agreement with the Haizol as well. So if you go through our program, it's NDA is covered as well.
Okay, awesome.
So yeah,
Thank you.
so we had a good chat about all those things last year with Jennifer.
So Jennifer, on that line, it's Michael here.
Hi, Michael.
Thank you for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. The concept then that ISA raised, we put our idea to you, but then somebody downline from you, say in Philippines, misuses it. Does responsibility come back to you? And I'm just hearing from Sae, even back to the Sydney Hardware Incubator.
So we've never had this case before. We get hundreds of designs coming into our system every month, and actually only the people who have access to your specific case will be able to see that design. So it's easily traceable if something were to happen. I mean, this is, as far as I'm concerned, this has never happened, because it wouldn't be beneficial. The risk wouldn't be beneficial for them in the end. But the system is encrypted, so essentially the only people that see your quote are who you allow it to. And for example, if I'm not part of that quote and I work for Haizol, I can't log in and see your design. So it's a very safe system. And I mean, essentially anyone human does have the possibility to take that design and roll with it in another capacity. But that's a risk with any kind of platform, and indeed any factory too. You could say the same when the factory is producing it. It could be somebody working in the factory who copies your design. But our NDA agreements are very clear, they're very strict, they're very stringent, and they cover all aspects of that. So it's very, very unlikely to happen. And within the system, it's all encrypted, and only the people who are quoting for you would actually be able to access that.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you put your details in our list, is it okay for you to have a connection with them and ask any questions?
Of course. So I will happily share my email and my WhatsApp, and feel free to drop me a WhatsApp or drop me an email. If you want to go directly through me, you can happily send me your parts, and I can send you the NDA agreement first, your drawings, and I can give you the quote directly if you prefer not to use the system. Otherwise, you can hop onto the system, register a free account, and go through that way. Both are totally fine. So yeah, I'll definitely share my contact information if you had any other questions as well before you wanted to get a quote.
Yeah. How many factories or companies are under Haizol, like manufacturing?
Many. So we have around 600,000 partner factories in China, and they specialize in a complete holistic package of manufacturing processes. So the good thing about using Haizol is it means whatever, even if you have a very specific requirement, whether that be the main processing method or secondary processing method, for example, a conditioning treatment, you know that we're going to be able to find a factory who not only can produce that, but is experts at producing that. So they'll have produced thousands of parts like yours previously, which again is really beneficial, that you're using a factory that you know is tried and tested with exactly what you are manufacturing. We have over 600,000, and that's mostly within mainland China, but also in Southeast Asia as well.
What is the minimum order quantity for Haizol? One?
So that depends factory to factory. So that's why it is also flexible, because if you have a small order quantity, you can just put that in, and only factories who are willing to accept that order quantity will quote you. So you have no waste of time in going back and forth to factories who have a really high minimum order quantity, and you've just wasted your time going to them because they won't produce your part anyway. So you would only get quotes back from suppliers who are willing to produce that small order quantity.
Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
Jennifer, Michael again. Your catch cry or grab line is sourcing in Asia. Do you include Australia in Asia these days?
Well, the sourcing in Asia just means talking about the suppliers that we have. So based on the fact that we don't have any suppliers in Australia, I would say no. But this system is for buyers worldwide. So essentially, it doesn't matter even if you're in Asia or outside of Asia. This platform is definitely one for you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, we had a previous presenter talking about the differentiation in costing between manufacturing in China now compared to Australia, and that was
right.
part of the reason for asking the question, because I thought, well, maybe you do have some outlets in Australia as well. But if I had an outlet in London, as an example, looking to put product through a license into the United Kingdom, I could still use Haizol to get my product organised before it was potentially shipped over there. But I was wondering, you're only in Asia, you're not into Europe?
So we have no suppliers in Europe, no. But you could manufacture in China, and then obviously we could have it shipped to Europe. But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
One question. I'm Ketan here. The quote that we get from Haizol, it is include the logistic also, the transportation and everything.
Shipping cost.
So your quote is flexible. You can select if you would like it to be including all of the shipping and the customs and the tax, or if you would like it excluding. So you can play around in the system with the quote. And typically the quote is including the shipping cost. But if it is not including the shipping cost, it will clearly say, and you can select that to be included.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Gautam, Hardy, Oma.
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. I like how simple to use Haizol's thing is. You just kind of pop in your design and what you're looking for, your minimum order quantities, your prices, and boom. It's fantastic. Yeah, I don't really have much more. How are you finding? Because you're based in China at the moment, right? Shanghai.
Yes, right.
How are you finding the shipping times to other countries, like and the whole trade war thing? Like, is that affecting much?
So I'm not going to say no, it hasn't affected the shipping times, but less and less. So in terms of the shipments now, it has almost gone back to normal. Obviously, in February and March, we had quite long delays on shipments, and that was really tough. But since I would say May, most of the ports have reopened. So in terms of logistics, there's not any delays now on shipping times to most countries. And it seems to be running almost like before. So I don't think you will see any difference when you use the platform. If you're normally used to a certain shipping time, I don't think there'll be any difference, maybe a day or two longer than usual, but everything's pretty much back to normal with regards to that. And in terms of the trade war, I would say it isn't affecting us so much. Most of our buyers are small to medium-sized businesses. They're not big corporations who may be more inclined to move their manufacturing elsewhere. So our customer base is largely retained and remained the same. So it hasn't actually influenced us that much.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, because I mean, we heard different things and at different times. So you probably can give an updated version of that. Like I've heard like from a few companies that, you know, there's been like a month delay and things like that in terms of the shipping. And like the issue is that like for us in Australia, for the ones that are in Australia in the cohort, it's just that we're kind of in the middle of this fight between US and China, and like we don't know, and you know, our government's kind of siding with the US for whatever reason. But like, and so I don't know if that's going to affect us into the future. So like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, if you get some manufacturers in China for the foreseeable future in the next 12, 24 months, like, what does that look like, do you think?
You mean in terms of how we're being affected?
Yeah. Like if we made some orders to get some stuff shipped to Australia or overseas, and yeah, the next 12 or 24 months, do you think it's going to get hairier, or it's you said we're coming out of it? Like, do you think that you know? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that kind of thing?
So where there's a will, there is a way, and I would just say I'm not sure in terms of the trade war how it's going to go. If the situation will improve or it will in fact worsen. But what I can say is we have logistics specialists. That is to say that they are experts in logistics. And so if there was any route that for some reason was blocked in the next 12 to 24 months due to the trade war, there will be another route. And it's always quick to be shipped because we have special partners, special relationships with the shipping companies too. So we're not affected at the moment by any of the politics going on between the countries. So I would say it's really safe to order from Haizol. Obviously, I can't guarantee the future, but from what I know, and I know that the logistics team personally, they're very, very good, and I can't see there being any issues with getting your products. So far, we haven't had any issues. We have a lot of buyers in Australia, and the parts are going through smoothly as normal.
Okay. Also, Haizol has got manufacturing in Philippines and Indonesia, other countries as well. So it's not just in China. So you can get manufactured, if you think China is in war, you can get manufactured with Philippines or Indonesia or Thailand and other countries as well. Not a problem. You will be the person you can choose where your goods can be manufactured. Is that right?
Exactly right, yes. So we do have other factories outside of China. So if for any reason you were apprehensive about using China, you can either specify, if you use the OneStop Sourcing solution, you can specify to the team that you want a factory, you want it manufactured outside of China. And if you're using the platform where you get quotes from suppliers, you'll be able to see where that factory is. So you'll be able to filter factories not in mainland China. But for now, I don't think that's an option. And I think you should definitely keep mainland China as the main one, because obviously that's where the majority of the factories are. So you're going to get the best competitive price and the best choice as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. I have another question, Jennifer, on that line. If your product was being ship freighted, it would seem logically that a product coming from China would take longer to get to Australia than it would, say, from Indonesia. Is an option there for, if I'm deciding between, say, Philippines and China? Obviously, I'm trying to think of the right terminology, but the time after I put an order in, how long it's going to take to service that order what's your experience? Does it take much difference between China and, say, Philippines to Australia or other parts of the world? I mean, it depends which direction you go, obviously, but what's your experience been in that line? I mean, we could go air freight, couldn't we, and it'd be virtually no difference, but could you just speak to the concept of orders being placed in different countries and then filling the order and how much time taken?
Yes. So when you submit your quote, your request for quote, you can specify the amount of the lead time you want. So if you could test by putting in a really short lead time, and it would only give you the factories and the locations that could manufacture and ship within that lead time. And I don't think there's a big difference actually, because like you said, by air, it's actually the same time taken between, say, China and Australia and the Philippines and Australia. There's no significant difference. So I don't think that affects it that much, because, you know, sometimes the distance is longer, but the route is more direct. So yeah, it depends on a bunch of things. And the main thing affecting logistics is the actual shipping company itself. And so you get to choose, obviously, the shipping company and the length of time that you want and how it's arriving to you. So if you're in need of the part fast and you choose air shipment, I don't think it's too much of a difference between Southeast Asia and China.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Jennifer, I had one question from one of your slides. It mentioned about KCCs and KPCs. Can you elaborate on them and the way or tools to find them out?
Yeah, so as I'm not an engineer, I'm probably not in the best position to elaborate further. Obviously, I do have a manufacturing background to be in this position, but the best people to elaborate more on that would be our engineers. So I can have our team put together some more in-depth information on that for you and drop you that via email.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
My
Any
pleasure.
other questions? That's right.
As
Any
long-
other questions?
As long as there's no limit, I'll do another one.
Yeah.
Sure.
Jennifer, just quality control and language. I've always been under the impression that, okay, I go to China to do a little random quality control check. How do you guys at Haizol help a client handle that? Say the difference in English and Chinese, of course.
Exactly. So, well, the first benefit to obviously using Haizol is the language barrier. So if you were to come yourself and directly visit the factory, some of them do speak English, but a large majority do not, especially in the actual quality control team. So what Haizol would do is, if you choose the OneStop Sourcing solution where Haizol would manufacture the product for you, they would do the quality checking themselves, our team, our in-house team. So after the parts are produced, they would be sent to Haizol and we would carry out the quality check. So you would not have to come to China, you would not need to be bothered with that, because we would have such a strong relationship with you and a clear understanding of exactly what you want that we would execute the quality check on that basis. And normally you would make a prototype with us first, a sample, to check that it's exactly the quality you want before you would go into mass production. So the basic part would have already been approved by you, and then the subsequent parts would be quality checked against your specification before they're shipped out. If you were to use the quoting platform, that's more down to you to do the quality check, but Haizol are always there to help. So they would assist with the language barrier. If you needed our engineering team to talk to the factory for you, we'll be very happy to do that. If you had anything that you couldn't communicate very well, we would help you to do that. So whichever way you choose, Haizol are always on hand to make sure that you get the quality that you need without having to fly to China, which now is actually impossible. So it's even more important to use a middleman like Haizol, because you don't have the option to come to China, and they are experts, our engineering team, so they know exactly what they're looking for, and they can, the fine tune to detail is really incredible, and they've been in this field for years and years. So I think you're in safe hands with the quality check. They have specific quality check protocols and checklists. So if you wanted to see those, I could have one of the engineers send those over to you, so you could see exactly what they're quality checking for.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been using Haizol for last 6-7 years now. I think one of my clients uses them for, I introduced Haizol to them, and they're still using it anyway for quality control, part supply, shipment, everything. Yeah, it's been